I'm very, I'm very happy. Boker Tov, everybody. I'm very happy to be here again. So I'll tell you the topic of the class today. It's perhaps a little more broad than it seems in the title. And the question is the following: when we're talking about tzibur, about public, is public just a partnership between many individuals? Like, we're business partners, okay? We're two people running together a business, so we're partners, okay? So how do I conceptualize, how do I see Klal Yisrael, tzibur? Is tzibur of Klal Yisrael, does it mean partnership between many individuals, and we're partners? Is that the meaning of the concept? Or there is some abstract meaning of, if I'll apply, a saying from the Gestalt theory in psychology, I'm a clinical psychologist, that the whole is greater than the sum of its particles, meaning there is some abstract notion of Klal Yisrael or tzibur. Tzibur is something abstract. The tzibur of Israel, the Am of Israel. It's not identical to just the accumulation of all the individuals, or to be viewed as partnership between individuals. Now, this fundamental question, we'll analyze it not from books of Jewish philosophy, but as a good thing, we'll analyze it through dafka a halachic sugya, because that has a certain strength. I think that the halach, if things are growing from the halacha, that's the real Jewish philosophy. Yeah, the philosophy of halacha. What is, we receive Torah and mitzvos in Sinai, and if we're able to extract, to derive from the halachic discourse a certain concept that has implications also for Jewish philosophy, for all kinds of stuff, I think that has a special power, okay? So that's the intro to the topic. And now let's jump to the topic. Once when I wanted to attract my community members for a shir in Parshat Kitisa, that was something like 13 years ago. I was one of my first years as a rabbi of the shul. So I wanted an attractive title, a little provocative. So I phrased the question in the following way. There is a common minhag, of course it's a joke, okay? There's a common minhag that during Musaf, the women are preparing the Kiddush, and they're not in Musaf. Is there any halachic basis to this? Or what is the source of the Jewish minhag that the ladies are preparing the Kiddush during Musaf? Okay, so that's the topic, if I don't want to phrase it as I phrase it there, is simply, are women obligated in davening, in Musaf davening? And actually closely related to that are people under 20, but after 13, males between the age of 13 and 20, are they obligated? Now that's a surprise, because we know that when you're reaching the age of 13, you're chayav b'mitzvos. So why should Musaf be different? No, even if the prayers are d'Rabbanan, as you know, there is a big machloket between Rambam and Ramban, whether prayer in general is d'oraita or d'Rabbanan. Yeah? Whereas Maimonides holds that the basic chiyuv to daven once in 24 hours is d'oraita. Nachmanides holds it's d'Rabbanan. But even according to Maimonides, as I said, the chiyuv d'oraita is merely to daven once in 24 hours, a certain text that you could even compose yourself that contains the three components of praise, request, and thanksgiving. Okay? But even according to Maimonides, the form of our davenings of Shachris, Mincha, and Mariv, and Musaf, all of these are only rabbinical obligations. So both Maimonides and Nachmanides agree that the prayers, the way they are, Shachris, Mincha, Mariv, Musaf, it's a rabbinic chiyuv. But okay, once a male and a female, once a male reaches the age of 13, he's chayiv in all mitzvot derabanan. So why say that Musaf is only when he hits the age of 20? That's a question. Okay. So first, let's go step by step. Is there any reason to say that women are not obligated, are exempt from Musaf? We'll start with the women. What could be the basis for an argument that ladies are exempt from Musaf, not obligated?
Question is, are they obligated in korbanot? Or they participate in the korbanot tzibur? I don't know the answer to that.
So you Harold, you say Dafka, it seems to you appealing that they're chayiv. Let's say, are they chayiv? Are ladies chayiv to daven shachris? Let's go, every day. Are they obligated?
Yeah, tefillah, they are.
So yes. So, wait a minute. Right. So what's the answer to Larry? Larry says, why are they chayav shachris? It's mitzvah shazman grama. It's a good question.
Oh, but that's just the Shema. But for tefillah, the Amidah, I think they are chayiv.
I know, but Harold, that's great. But Larry asks justifiably why. You're saying they're chayiv, but he says it just as Shema is mitzvah shazman grama, and you're right. So shachris and mincha are also shazman grama, so they should be exempt. It's a good question.
Good question.
Okay, so what's the answer, Chevra? Surprised the Gemara answers it. So it's
the women have to be free to prepare lunch for the men. So that's a good reason not to get Musaf.
No, so you're Phil, you're going back to Musaf. I'm asking about every day, Shachris and Mincha. They don't have to prepare to your lunch. You're eating lunch and learn in your office. So Tachlis, okay, to make long things short, and we'll continue. The Gemara says that tefillah rachmeininhu. Okay, meaning even though it's time sensitive, first of all, it's only rabbinic. Okay, to begin with. All right, it's only rabbinic to begin with. But furthermore, even though it's only rabbinic to begin with, it's rachmeininu. The Gemara says this term. And there is actually a machlokas how to understand this Gemara. Either you say that maybe the Gemara says it's really not time sensitive, but the more simple understanding that despite that it's time sensitive, rachmeininu, they have the tefillah, the core of tefillah is a request, a dialogue with God, and they need it like everyone else. And I'll even sharpen it. There is the machloket in the Gemara whether shachris and mincha correspond to the daily offerings, the tamid shel shachar and tamid shel ben arbaim, or that the tefillot are corresponding to Avraham that established shachris and Yitzchak that established mincha. Now this machloket is not technical. It seems two characteristics of the tefillah that, by the way, we're ruling both. We're applying both. That the tefillah is, on the one hand, some existential need that corresponds with Avraham standing in front of Hashem, Yitzchak going out, lasuach basadeh. That is the rachme component, the dialogue with God, the existential need to speak with God, to request, to thank. to praise. And the opinion in the Gemara that says that it corresponds to the offerings is talking about tefillah as a set framework, a daily framework of establishing a framework, a misgeret in Avodas Hashem. Okay? Now, the component that is framework, yeah, that's time sensitive. Shachris, Mincha, Tamid Shel Shachar, Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. However, if we're speaking about the component of the Rachme, that is less dependent on time, okay? And therefore, here we say, okay, the women are obligated in Shachris and Mincha. Now let's come to Musaf. Is Musaf time sensitive or not? Well, it certainly is, because Musaf appears only on special days. Forget about the hours. But Musaf is only on special days, on holidays, on Rosh Chodesh. So Musaf is clearly time sensitive. Now, does it have also an existential component? So we'll say Nashim are still obligated. That's a machloket between the Achronim, but it's pretty appealing. Let's see, the first one that raised up the issue of, or not the first one of the first one that maybe the first one that raised up the option and the opinion that ladies are exempt from Musaf was the Tzlach. Who is the Tzlach? Who is the Tzlach? Commentator on Masechet Brachot. Very important. The Tzlach, Tziyun Lenefesh Chaya. The Tzlach is the Noida Beyuda. The Noida Beyuda, a tremendous Gaon in Prague, hundreds of years ago. The Tzlach, in his commentary in Brachos Kaf Vav, the Tzlach says women should be exempt from Musaf because Musaf is time sensitive. Even though I say that Shachris and Mincha, they're obligated because Tefillah Rachmeu, okay? So it doesn't have to do with the time, or even if it has to do with the time, still, because of the component of the existential thing, they need to daven it. However, Musaf, that is not Rachmei, that is not a request, that's really time sensitive. To sharpen the Tzlach's point, let's see Tosfos in Brachos. Let's see Tosfos. One say, yeah. No, wait a minute. I need to prepare the sharing here appropriately. Yeah, now it will work out. So let's look at the first source here. Well, that's interesting. Where did this disappear? Oh, okay. Here, there we go. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Here. So, excuse me, it took a little time, but now we're off our way. So let's look at the first source. It's very clear. It's the Tosfos and Brachos. Okay, Tosfos is discussing what happens, the Gemara is asking, what happens if one forgot to daven mincha? What does he do? Now, we already know the answer. The halacha is that he davens Mariv twice as a tashlumin, but the Gemara had a suffix. And the Gemara's doubt was based on the fact that, after all, according to Jewish calendar, it's a different day. So if we're time sensitive, he missed a davening, a prayer on one day, one calendaric day, and now he wants to compensate to it somehow in a different day. So does that work? Maybe only someone that forgets to daven Shachris could daven Mincha twice, because it's the same calendaric day. The one that forgot Mariv can daven Shachris twice. But one who forgot Mincha, what will help if we'll daven twice Mariv? So that is if I'm working from the framework perspective, daily offerings, etc. But if I'm speaking about the Rachme perspective, the existential need, the request, and that it was established that you daven several times a day as part of your dialogue with Hashem, then yes, it could make sense that in the next prayer, even if it's not in the same calendaric day, you will daven twice. But then look at what Tosfos says. The Gemara didn't have that doubt. Lo ba'yim ta'ah v'lo yitpalel tfilat Musaf. The Gemara didn't have that doubt if he forgot to daven Musaf. The Havadayan no mitpalel b'arvit. Such a case, he never davens. Let's say, as we know, Musaf time, lechatchila is 7 hours till the 7th hour, including the 7th hour. But Yeved, one should daven Musaf till sunset if he is getting reminded. Like I got a phone call on last Rosh Chodesh from a member. He called me mamash 5 minutes before Shkia, right before I went to Mincha. Hey, Rabbi, I forgot this morning that it's Rosh Chodesh and I didn't say Hallel and didn't say Musaf. Now, of course, the ruling is go ahead and say immediately Hallel and Musaf. Okay, and that's what he did. So Musaf, but Yeved, you do it all day, and it counts. But what happened if the day passed? Now should I daven Maariv twice as a tashlumin for the Musaf that I forgot? So Tosfot points out that the Gemara doesn't even raise that option. The Gemara is not even bothered by that, whether you daven Maariv twice if you forgot Musaf, because it's clear to the Gemara that you don't do that. That if you missed Musaf, that's it. You missed it. You missed the boat. Why? He says, I'm sorry. I'm largening it again. How could he recite the offerings in Musaf and it's already not the day? Vegam, now look at this. Lo tiknu shevar bachot shel Musaf. The whole decree, the whole establishment of the 7 blessings in a Musaf prayer, the whole institution of Chazal that they established the Musaf prayer is because of Elamishum v'nishalma parim sfatenu uvaze v'dai avar zmano batel korbano. And regarding this matter, if you missed the boat, you missed it. Aval sh'at tfilot derach meininu, the rest of the prayers that are asking for requests, etc., ulevai shitpalel adam kol hayom kulo. We say best is that a person all day prays, and there's no passing of time with a different prayer. Tosfos here lays the foundation for a fundamental understanding in the nature of Musaf, and for a fundamental understanding about the difference between Musaf and the rest of the prayers. The rest of the prayers, says Tosfot, they're considered rachme. They're considered existential dialogues with Hashem, asking for mercy. Even if they also correspond to offerings, but that's the nature of all the prayers. It's not just a replacement or an equivalent of an offering. It's more than that. However, Musaf, he says, and that's very important, keep that in mind. Tosfot here establishes right and clear that Musaf is merely, it's pashut a korban, only in words. Neshalma parim sfatenu. He quotes the verse, we will, instead of the bulls, we will say with our mouths. That is Musaf. Musaf is a different prayer than the rest. It is mamish a korban, an equivalent of a korban, a replacement of a korban, of an offering. The rest of the prayers are more than that. So he says, so if we'll take this Tosfos, and that's why he explains there's no even discussion in the Gemara whether if I forget Musaf, could I compensate by davening twice Maariv? You can't. The offering time is over, and that's it. There's no meaning to daven Maariv twice as a compensation, as for Musaf, as a tashlumin for Musaf. Musaf, that's it. Musaf is merely a korban. It's a different prayer than the rest. Now, if you say so, then the next step, the next logical step, is exactly what the Noida B'Yuda, the Tzlach, does. So it's mamish a mitzvah aseh shazman grama. Here I can't say, no, women are still obligated because it's rachme. It's asking for mercy because it's not. That's what Tosfot said explicitly, that it's not rachme, as opposed to the other prayers. It's merely an offering, and this offering is time sensitive. Great. So it's only on special days. Great. Then it's mitzvah aseh shazman grama, and women are exempt. Some authorities, Achronim, disagree with the Noda B'Yuda and say that they're not exempt for that reason, because even Musaf, as opposed to Tosfot, actually they disagree with Tosfot, even though it is corresponding to a korban, still there is also an element of prayer or of establishing Kedusha Sayom, which the women are included in it. This is another opinion, and then it will reach the conclusion that they're obligated. However, even if they're exempt, and actually Rabbi Melamed, yes, I know I'm political here. Yes, Rabbi Melamed from Pninei Halacha, who I proudly quote, Rabbi Melamed says that even though the women are exempt, because he says it's a suffix, they're Rabbanan, so we hold like the leniency that they are exempt. So Allah said they are exempt. He says, but yet still, they are of course allowed to do it, and it's good if they're doing it, like blessing on every mitzvah shazman grama as Ashkenazim rule, and even Rav Ovadia that says that they're not blessing on mitzvah shazman grama, but here when the mitzvah itself is a blessing, okay, they can do it. We'll see other opinions that they say that they're obligated for different reasons. Okay? Again, Rav Melamed says Allah L'maaseh thinks they're exempt, but it's good that they'll do it. They have the right, of course, to do it. We'll see authorities that say that they're chayiv. Yeah.
Does anybody say they're forbidden to daven Musaf?
Yeah, very good. There is an opinion. It's a minority, Phil. That's why it says that they're forbidden. Actually, in the first version of something quoted by Rav Ovadia, it appeared that they're forbidden, but then he retracted, he withdrew and said they can. And the logic behind that is that there's some achronim that say that according to the Sfardim, the Shulchan Aruch, that ladies can do mitzvah aseh shazman grama, but can't bless Birkat HaMitzvot before it. That's the Sephardi opinion, that it will be a bracha levatala. Ashkenazim say they bless. Let's say Rav Ovadia rules when women are counting the Omer, they should do it without a bracha. Or when they're shaking a lulav, they should do it without a bracha. No, it's not only Rav Ovadia. That's the Shulchan Aruch. That's the classic Sephardi ruling. Yeah. Okay? Now, the next step is that some hold that according to this opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, when the mitzvah itself is a blessing, then what happens? Some say, no, here, dafka, they can do it and even bless. Okay? And some say the opposite. Here, they can't do it. Okay? So that was why some people say they shouldn't daven Musaf. But that's mamish a minority. Okay? And we'll see even opinions why to say regarding the mitzvah aseh shazman grama. So I said, whether they're exempt or not, it depends whether we adopt Tosfot's opinion that there's no rachme component here, no begging component, only a korban component, and then it's time sensitive and they're exempt. Or we say no, also in Musaf there are other components like establishing Kedushat Hayom, okay, and therefore they're obligated. But I want to go to the next step, which is the discussion regarding public. What is the meaning of public? Because that is one of the center discussions regarding whether women are exempt from Musaf or not. Also, I want to remind you, I asked another question. A guy that is 15-year-old. You know what? My son is a holy yeshiva bachur. he's mamish a great guy, and he's 18. Is he obligated to daven Musaf? Well, you'll tell me all of the considerations we said till now don't apply to him, meaning he is obligated in time-sensitive mitzvot. So why are there opinions, and as we'll see, that he is exempt? Anyone can guess? Why should a person less than 20-year-old, even though he's chayiv b'mitzvos and he's a male, and he's chayiv in time-sensitive mitzvos, so he should be chayiv in Musaf, why should he be exempt?
I think it has to do with the
able to bring a korban.
No, one at a time. So it's Harold and Mitch. You pick who said.
I'll defer to Mitch. He's older.
Okay, not by much.
Not
I think it has to do with the Parsha Shavua, the Shkolim, and who has to bring Shkolim.
Right. And can you elaborate? Who has to bring shkolim?
You have to be more than 20.
Right. But what is the relationship?
The Shkolim pay for Musaf.
But here I'll challenge you, Mitch. The shkolim also paid for Shachris. For Tamid Shel Shachar and Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim.
I think we're going to get back to your tzibur over there.
But what do you mean by tzibur is the same here and there?
What's it called?
By the way, I'll now challenge you based on the Tosfos that I learned with all of you together. Mitch, Harold, everyone. You could answer my question that I asked Mitch. But first, think about it. But then, Harold, what did you want to say?
I was just raising again. It has to be related to who is able, and I don't know the answer, to bring. Who is right to bring a korban, and it could be the Me'esrim V'mala. Maybe that's the rule. I don't know.
So here's the thing: you're both. There is a relationship between what Harold said and Mitch said. All the public offerings and that's our parsha. Okay, that's the relationship to our parsha. There was an annual fundraising starting in Rosh Chodesh Adar. Okay, annual fundraising of that each person should bring machzis a shekel, and they gathered it, and from that money, they bought all the year of the morning offering and afternoon offering, the Tamid Shel, all the korbanot tzibur, all the public offerings. Okay. All the public offerings that were bought from the money raised in that annual campaign of Machzis HaShekel. Okay, that's data number one. Data number two, generally in Korbanos, we speak about the owner of the Korban. The owner of the Korban, he's the one that receives the atonement. Like if I inadvertently turned on the light on Shabbos, then now I have to buy from my pocket a sin offering, a female sheep, and I'm the owner of that korban. I'm doing the smicha on that korban, and I receive the atonement. Okay? So usually, no, but here I'm a little misleading. The Kitzur, there is the concept of, the owner of the korban. Naturally, I'll think that it's the person who bought it. He's the owner of it. If, let's say, I volunteered a korban, not because of a sin offering, but an ola. So I'm the owner of that korban. Now, as I said, the public offerings, tamid, korban tamid, or korbanot musaf, the musaf offerings and the tmeeting, they were bought from that annual campaign of Machzit HaShekel. Comes Mitch and says, look, we see in our parsha that it's only people who are older than 20. These are the only ones that are obligated to bring this machzit shekel, half of the shekel. So it seems that the boys like my son that are 18 years old, anyone that is between 13 and 20 years old, they're not the owners of that korban because they weren't supposed to buy it. By the way, the same applies to women. Okay? So l'chora, but then I challenged Mitch So if you're working that way, so my 18-year-old boy should be not only exempt from Musaf, he should be also exempt from Shachris and Mincha daily. And we know that that's not true. But here, let's now please answer what I said based on the Tosfos we learned about the distinction between Musaf and the rest of the prayers. Easy.
Right, the Musaf is only linked to the Korban, but the other prayers are Rachmei Ninhu that are obligated.
Bidiyuk.
Yeah.
So the answer is simple. Even though Tamid Shel Shachar and Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim were bought from the Machzis HaShekel, just like Musaf, but the prayer of Shachris and Mincha, Toso says, are not merely korbanot. They're also Rachmei. So therefore, my 18-year-old boy is not exempt from them. However, Musaf, which is mamish, an equivalent, a replacement of the offering, no more than that. So here, since he is less than 20, and this offering was bought only by people older than 20, so he's exempt. That's an opinion brought in the Achronim. However, it's not accepted. And you'll have to explain why. And there is a good reason, and that hits the nail on our topic. What is a public? What is a tzibur? Here, I already gave you the hint. Can we say really that that an 18-year-old boy is exempt from Musaf, or even a lady is exempt from, simply for the fact that they don't need to buy the korban?
Well, you could say that the Korban Tamid and the Korban Ben Arbaim, still, they are there to expiate the sins of the entire community, which would include young men over the age of 13, perhaps, and perhaps even women. I don't know about that.
Like there is even, just to strengthen sharpen the point of Harold, though I'll quote it by Avraham in two different nuances, what he said, but that's later. We can differentiate between two different nuances here. But the general principle is clear. You know, there is an opinion, we'll review it now in the sources, that Kohanim and Leviim are exempt from Musaf, from Machzis HaShekel. Okay, that Kohanim and Leviim are, Kohanim, it's a dispute in the Mishnah, whether they're exempt from Machzis HaShekel. Will we say that the Korban Tamid and Korban Musaf doesn't apply for the Kohanim? It's absurd. And by the way, we have a testimony in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yeshua Levi, who was a Levi, that one of a rabbi that was a Levi was a chazan for Musaf. Well, if he is exempt, how could he fulfill that? Okay, how could he be motzi others? The point is that you should make a distinction between who is obligated to bring the Machzis HaShekel, and what does it serve in the end? Okay, some people are not obligated to pay, but still, I'll say the owners of the korban, or the ones that the korban applies to, it's to the entire tzibur, because it's not just partners. Like if the three of us gather and buy a korban, volunteer a korban together, if the three of us do that, then we are the three owners of that korban, partners. Great. However, a korban tzibur is not a korban of all the individuals who paid. It's a korban of Klal Yisrael as an abstract entity. So even if a person who is 18 years old is exempt from bringing the Machzis HaShekel, that is the description of the technical way how korbanot tzibur are bought. But they are korbanot tzibur. All the tzibur, women are included in the tzibur. Leviim are included in the tzibur. 18-year-old males are included in the tzibur. And the atonement received by these korbanot tzibur apply to everybody, not only to those people who paid. Okay? Therefore, they won't be exempt from Musaf, from that consideration. But Rabbi Akiva Eiger, for instance, claimed that they would be exempt from Musaf prayer. because of that consideration. So I'm bringing you the sides, and now let's see it inside, how it will be very, very clear and easy. So we saw in Tosfos this difference between Musaf prayer, which is mamash merely a korban, a corresponded to a korban, a replacement of a korban. He quotes the pasuk, "V'neshal maparim sfatenu." We will compensate for the bulls by our mouths. That is Musaf. And the rest of the prayers, Shachris, Mincha, are Rachme. They're also just prayers of request and dialogue with Hashem. Now, let's see the Mishnah and Shkalim. The Mishnah and Shkalim described a timetable. In Rosh Chodesh Adar, they announced the campaign. In the 15th of Adar, they're sitting in the cities with table collecting. In the 25th of Adar, they're even starting to take from people property in exchange for the machzit shekel, like mashkon. And now they ask, et mime mashkenim, who are we taking these objects, the gaboim, mashkon, how do you translate mashkon? There's a term for it, collaborate. It's like an object that I take in exchange for the debt. Collateral, or so something. Now here, I don't know if it's exactly your collateral or they actually collected the money. Yeah, but they asked, who do we go ahead and collect the money from? At the 25th of, starting in the 25th of Adar. It was, here, if you'll pause, bear with me just one more second. Mamash, one more second, 1 second. It's me memashkenin, yeah. Itchilu lemashken, yeah. Exactly what I said. In the 25th of Adar, yeah, in the 25th of Adar, they moved the table already to the Mikdash from the cities because they wanted to be already close to the Mikdash, and they would go out and take collab. The name that you said now, mashkon, collateral, they would take for the machzit shekel. We'll take things for people to collect. Now, who did they do it to? To Leviim, Yisraelim, converts, avadim meshucharim, avalo nashim v'avadim uktanim. Here it says, we're not collecting from women, slaves, and minors. Now, by the way, pshat of this Mishnah, minors means under 13. So tachlis, if I would read the pshat of the Mishnah, it seems that as opposed to what's written in our parsha, as our parsha spoke specifically about the collecting at the foundation of the Mishkan, but actually the pshat of this Mishnah, and we'll see Samach Rishonim hold like that the whole assumption that Mitch said is wrong. That actually the annual campaign for the offerings, actually a 13-year-old boy was already obligated, okay? That resolves it. And the fact that it's written 20 in our parsha was only regarding the campaign for building the tabernacle. At any rate, so here you see, at any rate, that women, they're not paying the machzit shekel, and the minors also are not. And pshat of the Mishnah, minor is not under 20, minor is under 13. And then the Mishnah continues. Every minor that his father started, if the father is giving machzit shekel for the son, he should continue next year to do the same. And then it says here, Ein memashkenim et hakohanim. We don't go and forcefully collect from the kohanim. Why? Mipnei darkei shalom, in order to maintain peace. Since they're working in the Mikdash, since they're working in the Mikdash, we don't want the collectors to get in a fight with them. But here it seems that in principle, Kohanim are obligated. Only we're not forcefully collecting from them because of the Darkei Shalom, peace. But now see the other opinion in the Mishnah regarding whether Kohanim are obligated to give the Machzir shekel for buying korbanos or not. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda testified. Rabbi Yehuda said, He'id ben Bukhri b'Yavne. There was a testimony of the Chacham ben Bukhri in Yavne that kol kohen sheshokel eino chotem. Every priest, every Kohen that gives Machzir shekel, it's not a sin. Not a sin. So it seems that he says a Kohen is allowed to bring a Machzir shekel. Clearly, Ben Bukhri held that Kohanim are exempt. They're exempt from only they're allowed to bring. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai there in Yavne, hearing the testimonies there of the halachos, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai there in Yavne didn't like it. He says, "No, no, on the contrary, every Kohen that is not paying, he's a sinner." Meaning Kohanim are obligated in Machzir shekel. Ela Kohanim dorshim mikraz el atzman. Rather, the Kohanim are erroneously, mistakenly, they're making a certain midrash on a pasuk to benefit themselves. What is it? Meaning the Kohanim erroneously claim that they're exempt, says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. What is the basis for the Kohanim's claim that they're exempt from paying this annual payment of Machzir shekel? It says, Kol minchat Kohen, every mincha of Kohen, kalil tiyeh lo te'achel. A mincha that is brought by a Kohen, that the Kohen is the owner, that it's a mincha of a Kohen, it's brought totally like a burnt offering to the altar, and no one eats it. Now they say, their argument is the following. Since the public offerings of the tzibur, of the Omer, the mincha of the Omer, in the second day of Pesach, is a public offering. The 2 loaves of bread is a public, that are brought in Shavuos, is a public mincha, public offering. The lechem apanim, done on Shabbos, on a weekly basis, is a public offering. And since the Kohanim say they're ours, meaning we're eating them, how come they're being eaten? I'll explain with the logic. It's simple. If a mincha is a Kohen's mincha, it could not be eaten. We see that we are eating as Kohanim the mincha of the Omer in Pesach, the mincha of Shavuos, and the lechem apanim. So we can prove from here that we don't have shaychus in the korbanot tzibur, that it's not ours. That's why we're allowed to eat. So we're not obligated to bring Machzir shekel. They have a proof that they're exempt from Machzir shekel. The proof is that in the public offerings, we're eating them. And if it was a mincha of a Kohen, meaning if we're part of this thing, and it's our mincha also, then we shouldn't be allowed to eat it. So we see that it's not our offering, meaning we don't have to bring the Machzir shekel. And obviously, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai disagrees with this logic. Why does he disagree? Apparently, the most simple understanding is that he disagrees because even if you're exempt from bringing money, it is still considered your korban. So what do you see? That the reason why you Kohanim can eat these menachos is because even though you are obligated to pay, it's not your mincha and it's not the Israelites' mincha. You're not partners here. It's the abstract entity of tzibur. That's all. So the premise of the Kohanim, the underlying assumption of the Kohanim trying to rule to themselves that if we get to eat this mincha, that means that we're not part of it. We don't have to pay for it, because if we had to pay for it, it would have been considered ours, and therefore we would have been forbidden from eating it. That's an erroneous link, because the fact that there is no connection between who pays and whose korban it is. You're right, you could eat it because it's not a minchas Kohen and it's not a minchas Yisrael. It's not a minchas shutafin. It's not a partnership between Kohanim, Leviim, and Israel in this korban. It's the Klal Yisrael korban as an abstract entity. That's the simple understanding. Rashi here says something different. Rashi in Erchin says, no, the Kohanim are wrong because they're a minority and that allows them to eat it. Seems that Rashi does hold that it's somehow a partnership korban, only since your share here is a minor one, therefore you're allowed to eat it. Let's now look at the fundamental question whether only one that is older than 20 is obligated, or even one that is 13 years old is obligated to pay for the public offerings. So let's see Rashi. Rashi in Menachos says, Kol Kohen she'eno shokel choteh, the kol ha'ra'ui li'ipaked kamar de'ainu mi ben kaf shana v'mala. Clearly only from 20 on. Ramban disagrees. V'chen yireli. Ramban in our parsha, it's Nachmanides in our parsha, v'chen yireli, ki shalosh trumot sheramaz kan, achat lekorbanot hatzibur, einena al yedei minyan ha'amur b'chumash ha'pikudim kedivrei harav. Okay, the truma for the public offerings, the midin and the musafin, because there it says you should not, in the midbar it says, in the counting of the midbar, it says that you don't count Levi, and shkalim shel korban levim chayavim b'hem ledivrei hakol. And according to the rabbis, Rabbi Yochanan, afa kohanim, v'chen halacha. So first of all, Ramban says clearly kohanim are chayavim to bring machzir hashekel. Ve'od, ki hashkalim lekorbanot einam mi ben 20 shana v'mala. The shkalim for the korbanos, the machzir hashekel for the offerings, are not from 20 on. Rather, ela mishehei v'shtei se'arot chayav lishkol. Once he ceases to be a minor, he's 13 years old, he's chayav. However, he says, about tziva katuv she'aviu lemelechet hamishkan, trumat chatzi shekel lekol ha'over ala pikudim miben kaf shana v'mala. Only for the building of the tabernacle, and as we know, the machzir hashekel, it says in Parshat Vayakel, was used for the adanim, for the things that connected the wood, okay, the bases. So yes, only regarding that it says 20 and on. But for what is done annually, the machzir hashekel that is done annually for the public offerings, that's already when you're 13, it says the Ramban. Beramaz, and he says there is actually a hint for this in the pasuk, because it says Ha'ashir lo yarbe ve'adal lo yamid mimachatzit hashekel lechaper al nafshotechem. The wealthy will not give more, and the poor will not give less than machzir hashekel in order to receive atonement on your souls. Shekol hatzarich kapara, anyone who is required of atonement. She'igia lekol chiyuv hamitzvot, and that is anyone who reached 13, and ladies for Yavi machatzit hashekel acher lekorbanot, should bring another additional machzir hashekel for offerings. So Nachmanides' opinion is b'chlal, the whole premise is wrong. The whole building, the whole attempt to say that women and people that are 18 years old are exempt, the whole premise was that people that are 18 years old are not obligated to bring the machzir hashekel. Ramban disagrees with that whole premise. He says the 13-year-old is obligated. Now we're reaching Adar and Purim, so let's see the Ramah. There is the minhag to give machzir hashekel, zecher l'machzir hashekel. It's very important that it's a zecher l'machzir hashekel. There is a minhag to give a zecher machzir hashekel in Tainus Esther. So he says, Yesh omrim, There are that are saying, the Rama says in Hilchos Purim, sheyesh liten kodem Purim machatzit min hamakdeh kavua b'oto makom u'b'oto zman, that there is a custom to bring half of the coin that is accepted at that time and at that place. Zecher lamachatzit hashekel, a commemoration to Machzit HaShekel that was traditionally given in the month of Adar for the offerings. And then he adds, Ve'ein chayav litno rak mishu miben esrim shana v'mala. So we see the Rama Tachlis adopts Rashi's opinion and not Nachmanides' opinion. The Rama says the annual campaign for public offerings was merely from 20 years old on. So, l'chor, according to this logic, we can say that they're exempt from Musaf, the 18-year-olders. So Rashi and Erchin says, and Kohanim, according to the opinion that they're exempt. Ladidan late leach drasha the high kalil tiye b'minchat kohen gridata katu. Aval b'minchat tzibur, Rashi says, zil betar ruba. Look at that. Rashi says, why did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai disagree with the Kohanim that said, if we're eating the mincha, the public menachos, that means that it's not ours. So therefore we don't pay also. He says, wrong. Actually, you are part of that mincha, and you should pay for it. Only menachos that are purely of Kohanim, or that the majority of the owners are Kohanim, only they are burned. But mincha of the entire public, you should follow the majority. Now that's a strange wording. Follow the majority. Actually, a better wording will be, no, it's not a majority and minority. It's a different concept. Public offering is not a partner's offering. There is an abstract entity that is public. And therefore, you Kohanim get to eat it. But you're definitely part of that public, and you even have to pay for the korban. Rashi chooses a different wording. He said, they're merely a minority here, the Kohanim. Therefore, they're allowed to eat it. Meaning, it seems that Rashi does see a link between the giver and the korban, the giver of the money and the korban. Rashi does maintain that link. Only he says, since they're a minority, they can eat the offering. However, if we'll look at the phraseology of the Avnei Nezer, the Avnei Nezer is the Sochatshov Rebbe, a big Talmud Chacham that wrote an important responsive book. The Avnei Nezer will say our conceptualization, saying, I am cutting the link between the one who paid for the korban and who is the korban standing to. The korban is a korban of the tzibur as an abstract entity, the ones who paid and the ones who didn't pay. Okay, I'm not looking who is the majority and who is the minority of the givers. That's not the point. Let's see the Avnei Nezer. The chiluk hazeh, this chiluk, this distinction between bein tzibur l'shutafen, lefi aniyut dati barur. There is a clear difference between korban tzibur and korban of partners. Partners is something that is composed by the individuals who are composing this partnership. Tzibur is just an abstract entity, Klal Yisrael. Harei mefurash zeh chiluk de bet tzibur, says the Avnei Nezer. Look at his clear wording. Ein nikra shem kol echad ve'echad ala korban. It's not that the name of each individual is on that korban. I'm the owner of this korban, and you're the owner. Okay, each of us pay the machzit hashekel, so I'm the owner, and you're the owner, and you're the owner, and you're the owner. No, Phil is the owner, Mitch is the owner, Harold is the owner. No, I'm the owner. No, that's not true, says the Avnei Nezer. Rak tzibur b'chlal, the public as an entity, independent entity, the public is the owner. But if yichach ein kol echad ve'echad somech al korban, he says there is a halachic implication to that. In partnership offering, each of the partners has to do smicha, to put his hand on the animal. When, let's say, we're three that gathered together and bought an offering, and we're bringing it as a partner's offering, each of us is an owner, and each of us will have to do the smicha. In Klal Yisrael Korban, of course, it's not that every morning all the people of Israel are approaching the Mikdash and doing smicha on the Korban. So you could say, in principle, they should have. Maybe Rashi would say that. But they're not doing it because practically it's impossible. But no, the Avnei Nezer says no, it's not a practical thing. Each individual as an individual is not an owner. Therefore, there's no smicha. It's the public. No one, he says, why not every individual is making smicha on the korban, putting down on the... It's not that each one individually has a part in the korban. And another proof, he says, that in the public there is no name of each individual on the korban. It's from our Mishnah and Shkalim, that the Kohanim claimed that since we're eating the korban, that means that we shouldn't pay. And he says it's not true. And why not? Because of what Rashi said, that they're a minority. Because he says, Av sheyesh lo chelik b'korban tzibur, even though they have a portion in the public, the interpretation of that is not that sheyesh lo chelik b'fnei atzmo, sheyek karech el kol minchat kohen. It's not that I have a designated part, and therefore that part is called minchat kohen, and I can't eat it. No specific part is a minchat kohen part. Rak yesh lo chelik b'toha, you're part of a cloud, of an abstract entity of the cloud. So there's no portion in that korban that is a kohen portion. Because the tzibur is not just the accumulation of the individuals. The tzibur is an independent entity of Klal Yisrael. As opposed to the Avnei Nezer, that says our distinction loud and clear, Rabbi Akiva Eger doesn't say that. The Gaon Rabbi Akiva Eger says, and that's the core of the Lichora Nir'ah, look at that, it appears, the Nashim Pturat Mitfilat Musaf. He says, Nashim are exempt from davening Musaf. Why? Not because of the reason of the Noda B'Yuda, that it's a time-sensitive mitzvah. No. He says a different reason why women are exempt from Musaf. Kevin the Nashim, says Rabbi Akiva Eger, Lo Hayu Shoklot. They're not paying machzir shekel, as we saw in the Mishnah and Shkalim. Ein lahem chelek b'korbanot tzibur. They have no portion, no shaychus in korban tzibur. Only the people who pay for the shkalim, only they, says Rabbi Akiva Eger, are part of korban tzibur. Just like Mitch's initial thought. Rabbi Akiva Eger says it as a conclusion. Yes, there is a link. Only ones who are obligated to pay shkalim, only they have a part in korban tzibur. Therefore, women are exempt from Musaf prayer. As you've seen, according to the Avnei Nezer's conceptualization, explaining why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai disagreement with the Kohanim, says no, that's a wrong link. One thing is who's obligated to pay, and a separate thing is who does the korban apply to? It applies to all the tzibur. Let's see the Ber Yitzchak. It's Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, the Gaon of Kovna, and he says, "Ikar mashe katav hagaon anal." The basic thing that this genius Rabbi Akiva Eger wrote, that women are exempt from Musaf because they are not paying, that is not clear to me. Okay, and here he says, because then he proves exactly, the Avnei Nezer proves from the fact that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai claimed that Kohanim are not exempt from Machzir shekel. So the link is not true. Atu Kohanim v'Leviim, he says. No, and he says more than that. He says, according to the Ben Bukhari that says that Kohanim are indeed, he says, according to Ben Bukhari, that Kohanim are indeed exempt from Machzir shekel. Will you say that Kohanim, Leviim, and minors less than 20 are exempt from Musaf? He says, rather, it's proved that Musaf is not dependent on the giving of shkolim collab. Now look at the Torah Temima. That's astonishing and amazing. Mamasha halacha l'maisa discussion based on the Rabbi Akiva Eger. Can my son, who is an 18-year-old guy, can he be the chazan of Musaf? Can he be a Musaf chazan? Look at what the Torah Temima, Rav Epstein, says. Yesh le'a'ir, he says, nafkamina b'machloket zo, the machloket between Rabbi Akiva Eger and Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan. Ladina, bazman hazeh. He says, according to the Shut Samim Rosh that the Rabbi Akiva Eger quotes, that women are exempt from Musaf because it's a zecher of Korban Musaf and it's from the Shkolim, and the women are not chayv in Shkolim, therefore they have no shaychus to Musaf. Lefize, let's look at the bold letters. Ladat, Rav Badia Bertanura, the Chinuch, the Rokeach, the Gra, that a minor less than 20-year-old, as opposed to Nachmanides, is exempt from machzir shekel. Therefore, if we'll apply this vara, ein lahem chelik bar korban musaf, umimele pturin mitfilat musaf. V'itchayev mize od, lefi ma'ide kalam elan, kol ha'patur min ha'davar, ino mutzi acharim b'dei chovatan. One who is exempt from something cannot fulfill the obligation for someone else. Meaning, if I'm exempt from a mitzvah and you're obligated on the mitzvah, I can't be motzi you on that mitzvah. Im ken ein leish pachot mi ben esrim. Therefore, a minor, less than, not a minor, an 18-year-old guy cannot go to the for the Amud in Musaf in order to be motzi the public. So Mamash takes it to the extreme. Now we're not makbid on this simply because we disagree with this whole svara of Rabbi Akiva Eger. Why do we disagree? Because of what Harold said, because of what the Avnei Nezer and Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan say. Public has nothing, a Korban Tzibur gives atonement to all the Tzibur. Okay, that's it. No matter if you were obligated to pay the money that it was bought from or not. Look at the Tzitz Eliezer, one of the poskim of our generation here in Jerusalem. The Shut Rabbi Akiva Eger, Meir Lomar, he comments that women will be exempt from Musaf. And it seems that also one that is less than 20. Now he quotes the Shoel HaMeishiv, Reb Yosef Shaul Natanson, the Shoel HaMeishiv, a tremendous giant in the 19th century, that he said an argument that I said to you before against it. He said, they should be obligated in Musaf, he claims. The Kevan de Musaf ba bishvil kedusha sayom uvereisha tadir ratzu lechashbo kadosh mitmidin. You know, there is a suffix in the Gemara, in the avoda of the Mikdash. What takes precedence? Something that is tadir, frequent, or something that is holier? What overrides the other? If there's a conflict, which offering to do first? Which avoda to do first? The holier one or the more frequent one? Tadir or Mekudash? Now they call Musaf Mekudash. Why? Because it comes from the Kedusha Sayom. It is a way to establish the Kedusha Sayom, the special holiness, uniqueness of the day, because Musaf is not in every day. And now we said Nashim, women, are chayev in Kiddush, right? Because there is a drasha that Shamor v'Zachor were said together. And since women are included in Shamor, all the negative commandments of Shabbos, they're also included in the positive commandment of Shabbos, which is sanctifying the day, declaring the sanctification of the day, the Musaf. So if the tefillah of Musaf is part of establishing Kedusha Sayom, so women should be included in that and obligated in that. Anything that was established and decreed for establishing the Kedusha of Shabbos and Yom Tov, it is pashat that they're obligated, just like males. So here, one argument that Tzitz Eliezer quotes from Rabbi Yosef Shaul Natanzon, a different argument than we said till now. Musaf is not only corresponding to korbanos. Musaf also comes to sanctify the day, the prayer of Musaf. And since it's part of the active action of that we're all obligated from the word zachor, to sanctify the day, so women are also obligated in that. The next argument, he says, exactly. Harold's claim, you want to say that they're not included in Korban Tzibur? So how do they receive atonement in Yom Kippur? Clearly they are receiving atonement from public offerings, even though they weren't obligated to pay the Machzir shekel. And he says the explanation to this, if they should be they were offered for everyone that is chayav in mitzvot. So here, I promised you that we'll say two nuances. So the simple nuance is to say, and I said it several times, I'm repeating myself, one who there is a distinction between who is obligated to pay for buying, purchasing, acquiring the public offerings, and tachlis, who is the public that the atonement is referring to. The public is all the public, the ones that paid and the ones that didn't pay. And Musaf corresponds not to who paid, the Musaf prayer corresponds not to the one who paid, but to the one that tachlis, the offering, refers to him. A slightly different nuance to say it is that actually everyone is even obligated to bring the korban. Not that everyone, as a result, receives atonement. Everyone is obligated to bring the korban. Only the details of this obligation is that some are exempt from paying, but nashim are also obligated to bring the korban, meaning all the tzibur are obligated as a tzibur to bring the korban, meaning they should encourage their husbands to pay the machzir shekel. Okay, maybe I'll say it this way. But simply put, the public is more than it's not a partner's offering, it's a public offering. Everyone is included in the atonement, women, kohanim, people less than 20, etc. Sefer HaChinuch, we see, Shenitztavu Yisrael, it's an obligation of all Israel to bring to offer twice a day, not only 20-year-old and more. And the shgaga nitlet al kol adat Yisrael. Kol adat Yisrael. He says, ladies, everyone, if they see that these offerings are not brought, they should take care to fix it. So the Sefer HaChinuch definitely goes with the nuance that not only everyone receives atonement from the public offerings, everyone is actually obligated. Some are exempt from paying, but everyone is obligated to take care that these offerings are being brought. The same for Musaf. Okay, let's now skip this line and we are almost done. These are our last sources. In Horayos, there is a great quote. You know, there is a din that a sin offering that its owner died, it was already, let's say I turned on the light inadvertently on Shabbos. I already bought the korban, the sin offering, the female sheep, but now I passed away. The offering cannot be brought. It's called chatat shemetu ba'aleh. It should be burned or it should be wander around till it's dead, whatever it is. But he says this whole category of a chatat that the owner, a sin offering that the owner passed away, doesn't apply regarding a public sin offering. A public sin offering, you don't say that. And the proof is from the fact that the people in Ezra time, when Ezra made Aliyah, he brought sin offering, a public sin offering, and the Gemara interprets and arise that was to give atonement for the Avodah Zarah at the end of the first temple. Now, none of these people were alive when Ezra came. But the Gemara says, Ein tzibur meitim. That's deep. Public as an entity, as an abstract entity, is never dying. The owner here is not the people who bought the korban. It's not even the sinners that the korban. If it's defined as a public offering for a public error, the public error is not merely by the components that made the error. It's Klal Yisrael made an error. And therefore, that is not time boundary. And even that. Now, a little reservation. There, Tachlis, the Gemara does want that at least one person will be alive. But I assume it's not because of the payment. It's because of the actual action of the sin. But I'm still bringing the same idea. The Gemara in Ketuvos says that explicitly. Tormin ala avud ve'ala gavui ve'la'atid ligabot. We're actually taking the money from the kupa, from the pushka of the machzir shekel, and we are now buying korbanos, also for someone that sent his machzir shekel and it was lost in the mail office. He'll also be included in the korban. And also to one that we will in the future collect. The point is that, again, the concept of public is more than the components that compose it. I will conclude the shir just by by a quick summary, but also what I said, the philosophical implications. First, are women obligated or not? There's an argument in Musaf. There are two arguments to say that they're exempt. Two different arguments to say that women are exempt from Musaf. Why? That it's a time-sensitive mitzvah, and as opposed to Shachris and Mincha, that are not only corresponding to the offerings that are time-sensitive, they're also mercy. Musaf is merely an exchange of a korban. Second argument to exempt women is that they weren't obligated to pay for the money that the Musaf was bought from. And since again, Musaf is merely a korban, so they should be exempt. The answers to these two arguments, potential answer is A, it might not be time sensitive simply because it also serves other purposes like a holds of dialogue with Hashem, or as Rabbi Yosef Shaul Natanzon says, sanctifying an action of sanctifying the day, which they're included in the obligation of it. B, regarding the second argument, that, by the way, only the second argument applies for a person between 13 and 20. Well, here we're saying, no, excuse me. Some people are obligated to pay the machzir shekel and some are not. But all are included in this korban tzibur. Why? Because this is not a partner's offering. And the partnership is defined, of course, by the people who paid. No, this is a public offering, and a public is an abstract entity that includes everyone, and no one is individually there. Not a Cohen, not a women. It's just a public as a public. Ramification: can an 18-year-old go for the Amud and Musaf and other stuff? Okay. Philosophically, I think you all understand the statement, the concept that the tzibur is more than, we're not partners here. We're an entity, a spiritual abstract entity of Am Yisrael, has a lot of meaning. We received the Torah in Sinai as a public. Therefore, it obligates not only the people, it's a covenant with a nation that Hashem did. Therefore, it obligates not only the people who were there, it obligates even people that weren't born. Yes, so there is the midrash that the neshamos of everyone was there, okay? But maybe that's a metaphorical way to say that public is just an independent entity that is crossing generations, crossing individuals. And the covenant of Hashem with us, and that's important, the revelation was to a public, not to an individual. Okay? This is very, very critical. it has a lot of implication that this Kudshabrichu Oraita and Israel Chadninu. Am Israel has a certain spiritual value that is more than the accumulation of the individuals that compose it. It's something that is in covenant with Hashem. It's the nation of Hashem, the messengers of Hashem. And I'll just add that has to do even with some political burning questions that I'll just hint to that. Let's say many people that come from Western countries don't understand how the dumb native Israelis don't get it, that the best thing is separation of church and state. Now, you need to understand, separation of church and state, I'm not here saying my opinion. Maybe practically it's a good thing, even in the interest of religion. Maybe it's a bad thing. Just people need to internalize that we can't take John Locke's essay, that is the foundation of the philosophy behind separation of church and state, saying a state's purpose is merely to fix the roads and to have an army, but not to deal with private aspects like religion. That is not the right of the state, and it's not the state was never authorized to that. Now, that makes a lot of sense when I'm speaking about a private belief in religion. Our religion in its core is a national religion, not a universal one, and not an individual. That's the source for the laws of Arvus, or one could be Motzi the other, and stuff like that. So there is a lot of meaning to this. First, people need to acknowledge, even if their conclusion is that now the best thing practically is to separation of church, they will serve well, the religion will serve it. All of this could be just on the conceptual level, it's needed to be understood that you can't just apply a Christian model. The Christianity is not a national religion, okay? In Judaism, there is a link between the nationality and the religion. It's very unique. And that's part of the thing, that the public has a covenant with Hashem as a public. And that has, as I said, many implications. Okay. חברים, תודה רבה. שיהיה לכולם שבת שלום. פורים שמח.
תודה.